Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith, and you are tuned in to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them and you in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Country Fried Outdoors podcast. It's Sean here again. And once again, I've got Sammy on the line. Say what's up, Sammy.
Hey, man. Long time no talk.
I know, right? Never mind the man behind the curtain kind of speech right here, but we just got done recording our first elk hunt, and now like 5 minutes later we're recording our most recent elk hunt, which had been our second elk hunt together.
Hey, when you're on a roll, you may as well keep rolling.
Yeah, you might as well. And you try to keep these things about an hour long, and I found out a reason why most try to keep it an hour long, and that's because with your services that you subscribe to, they only give you X amount of time that you're allowed to upload per like.
Oh, really? I was unaware
cycle.
of that. I just assumed it was an attention span thing.
No. And it depends on what subscription you want to buy into. So some of them are like $12 to $20 a month, and that's for like 1 hour per month or 1 hour per 2 weeks, whatever the time period is. So there are different subscription that goes into that. So that kind of plays into how this happens.
So, all right. Well, not to get too deep into how the sausage is made, I had another question, but we can save that for after the show.
Okay. All right. So let's, before we get started, at least on the elk hunting aspect of this, I've spent most of my day to day replacing a water heater, and this is like the fourth one now. I'm not going to say what company it is, but I will tell you this: if you guys need a tankless water heater installed, please get a hold of me because I am now a professional at it.
At the minimum, hit him up on Messenger for troubleshooting. Because
I've now installed my fourth one. To keep replacing the ones that we have issues with, and I am not looking for comments on how to make them last longer. I am well aware of that, and I think the company that I have bought these things off of also is aware of the fact that I know on how to maintain these, and I think that's how I've ended up with as many of the free ones as I have. But that's neither here nor there, and don't ask because I'm not going to disclose it because I'm not going down that rabbit hole and with a company. I'm just telling you right now, if you need assistance, hit me up on the Instagram. I'm kidding. That's a little bit of a joke. Of course, I got somebody messaging in right now. They can leave a voice.
As they do
later. They can try, I guess I'm trying to call in as I'm trying to talk to you. But yeah, so that's what been most of my day has been through, because it is a whitetail rut here in Ohio. It's November 8th, I believe, and it is a whitetail rut, and I should be out hunting. But no, my day was spent trying to fix a hot water tank or a tankless water heater that went out yesterday. And through some heated conversations with a manufacturer, I finally got a RA number to do the replacement, and we got that taken care of today. And I had to do some rework on a couple things and finally got it up and running. And if you know anything about me and plumbing, generally speaking, plumbing does not go to plan, and it takes a couple of different iterations to get it to work the way you want it to without having any leaks. And that's exactly what I ran into today. Was just as soon as I thought I was done, I had a leak.
I mean, you don't even have to chalk that up to a plumbing issue. Every project you start, whether it's automotive, carpentry, plumbing, masonry, whatever your thing is, you're always going back to the hardware store.
Yeah. I should have like a frequent flyer card for Lowe's by now.
I'm sure a lot of people are thinking the same thing.
Yeah. I really should. So anyways, that's been my day. And I got some friends up from Texas right now. They're hunting. Jeff, my buddy Jeff, he shot a buck a couple nights ago.
And that guy is always on top of it.
Yeah, he is. This one, he shot a monster several years ago. Like this was a big buck, like really big buck. And he usually he has shot quite a few good ones. Last couple times he's been up, he's been more about just, hey, anything that's more than this, right? He's got an idea, and usually the idea is anything more than a basket rack, he's okay with shooting. And that's what he got this year. Was a nice so, what, nice 8-pointer? Yeah. I mean, a nice. I would say it was about a 3-year-old deer. And
for any of you Western hunters listening, that would be a 4x4.
Yeah,
or a 4-point.
Yeah, you Western guys and how you guys decide to just totally negate half of an antler, but whatever. I will concede that I will agree with you if you go 4x4 or 5x3 or 6x2 or whatever combination you want. I just don't tell me half of an antler. Like, oh, that was a 4-point. Okay.
Well, you score them both, don't you?
It's like, so where's the other half? But anyways, so he got that, and I guess his son shot one today, and they spent most of the day tracking it, and they have not been able to find it, and I feel bad.
Oh, that's such a heartbreak. Hopefully, they can get back on it.
Yeah, because I've been in that situation more times than I care to be. But yeah, they're pretty confident it was a single long hit, if not more, and they've tracked blood all over the property, and it just seems like this deer's not stopping and will not stop.
The best thing I learned from that type of experience, in which had to learn it the hard way, that seems to be our MO, learning things the hard way. But yeah, if you start losing blood and you're not sure, back out, give that thing time, and if conditions are good enough, go back in the morning, man, give them the night.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done it a couple times, at least with a doe. Funny thing is that you were with me the time I shot that doe, and we lost blood in a high. I don't know what they were growing that year. I don't know if it was just a CRP or what was going on. I think it might have been like rye or wheat he was growing that year.
I think it was the winter wheat that year.
Yeah, it was winter wheat, and we lost blood in there, and so we backed out. And I came back the next morning, and like I think I walked. I wasn't there 10 minutes and I found her. Like, I didn't even get back on the trail that we had left.
Pretty much tripped over her, didn't you?
Yeah. I kind of like, there's something in my head that said, hey, go down and check this, because the way she acted, maybe a gut shot. And anybody who is dealt with, animals that's been gut shot, things like that, they tend to go to water, or try to get around water. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna go down and just check this creek, right? And sure enough, that's where she was. Like, I seen like a drop of blood, and then like right there she was. So she had expired, and I couldn't tell you how long she had been expired. But was able to recover her, and I felt really good about that. And because there's a lot of times that we've been on those blood trails to nowhere, and those are not good feelings.
They're tough. You don't want to. No. You really don't want to go back out after that.
No, you got to get. Unfortunately, but you do need to get back in the saddle, and it is a part of hunting, and I'm glad that people feel that remorse, because as a hunter, like, I know a lot of people, like, your ultimate goal obviously is that you're going to kill the animal. Like, I get that, and it's kind of a bittersweet feeling though. Like, and the fact that you're happy and excited that you managed to, meet your goal, reach your goal, do whatever it is, hit that target that you wanted to get. But at the same time, there's a little bit of remorse for the fact that you've taken a life. Now the fact that that life is going to go towards, like, nutrition, sustenance, things like that. Like, it's not going to go to waste, right? But it's just
absolutely, and it's a shame that most of us get labeled, or actually, most people label hunters as just bloodthirsty killers out there for just the trophy, when generally that's not the case. The majority of people are out there for the sustenance. Right. Sometimes those antlers are just the bonus, and it gets put on the wall in remembrance and respect to that animal.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a good discussion point, not for this today, but
Yeah, we could go down a whole pile of rabbit holes, but we can jump back on track.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think that's what's going to run into with this podcast is we're going to be running into a lot of rabbit holes in our discussions.
But Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson have made a fine career off of it, so
it makes you relatable.
To say we're like them at all, but I wouldn't mind going in that direction.
Right. It makes you relatable as you sit there and you discuss, because people can relate with that, because that's how everyone is. Like, you get into the discussion, you start hitting a bunch of topics and you move on. Eventually someone's going to cycle us back to where we need to be.
Yep.
But I definitely, that's definitely going to be a good conversation to have. I think we'll get into that at some point in time. So anyways, so we are here and we're going to talk about our most recent not deer hunt, but elk hunt, which happened this year.
2023, baby.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it took 5 years, a little bit over 5 years for us to get this thing put together. You and I had planned it to be last year.
Had hoped for it. All intents and purposes, thought we had people on board, thought we had things, I wouldn't say set in stone, but at the minimum lined up pretty well.
Yeah. We had, so you were already living in Colorado. You've already been a resident there for a while. So I'm coming from Ohio, and the original plan was that there were going to be three of us, at least two of us coming from Ohio, right? So I knew I would be sharing the cost of, the trip out. Late in the year, where it was too late for me to call an audible and to make sure that I had enough money put away for the actual trip by myself, somebody backed out. And there was originally three of us that were planning to go. One guy got involved in an accident, not his fault, and I get that. And then the other guy just decided he wasn't going to go, and so it kind of left me as the Lone Ranger on my way out to Colorado.
With $5 gas prices at the time.
Yeah, and it wasn't part of the original plan, and I hadn't really budgeted for that. And so I had to. I had to bow down. But I vowed that, come hell or high water, the next year I was going to be out there, and sure as shit, there I was. Even though it was a draw unit, they had switched to a draw unit on us. And, I put in for the draw. That would be the only thing that would have kept me from coming out there this year, was if I didn't draw. And
fortunately it was a newer unit. Well, not a newer unit, but a newer to the draw system, so it was 0 to 1 points to get, thankfully.
Yeah, and I had no points, obviously, put in for it, and I got it. And that could definitely be a conversation about going through the point system or draws. Every place has its own different way of doing it. Like Kentucky for elk is that you just pay for a slight nominal fee. And it's I think it's like $10 per thing you apply for, and that's it. Colorado, I have to buy a small game license, so I'm already out $100 plus. And then it's a fee for the license for me to put in for the draw, which I don't remember exactly what it was. I
believe for non-resident, the application for big game is $10. If you're a resident, I believe it is $7 per application.
Yeah, so it wasn't too terrible. So it's pretty similar to the application fee itself, but the fact I had to buy a small game license first, which was like $100 and some.
And then bite your nails for a few months after that, waiting on your results.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I'm gonna either end up with a point, which I did put in for a point for mule deer, which hopefully next year I will draw to come out there and chase mule deer. But yeah, you're right. A couple months later, I got a notification on my credit card statement saying a Colorado Parks and Wildlife has taken $700 and some out, which meant I had an elk tag. And I was prepared. I knew I'd be making the trip, so I had some gigs that I had put together for a side job of mine to have a little extra cash to go, and I had everything put together. And come opening day, a couple days before opening day, I was making my way to Colorado. But before we get there, let's discuss that, because you are like the unsung hero this trip because you live out there, you've got a lot of experience, you've done a lot of scouting. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that. Like what is all the work and effort you put into this season?
Well, I feel like unsung hero is a bit much, but I will appreciate the compliment. um, but yeah, this year was kind of a shock to the system. Getting this unit switched from over the counter to draw was not something I was anticipating come the calendar year that had just got thrown our way. Uh, but we can overcome adversity. So that was the first step we had to get over, was the fact that it may not happen. Fortunately, it did. From there, regardless, I would have been in the mountains scouting, getting cameras up. On public land in this state, you cannot use the what do they call them now? The cellular device cameras.
Yeah, cell cams.
Yeah, you cannot use those on public land. You can use a traditional trail camera that emits no signal, which means the good old fashioned way. You put it up and you check it as you have the time. Generally, I like to leave cameras up for at the minimum a month before going to even look at them. I had an area where I've been into elk before. They're typically there every year. I could not get to that area early summer this year because of a fire close proximity to that spot. That fire burned for, I'd say, about a month and a half. Fortunately, did not make it in to the vicinity, but that meant I had to come up with a plan B, which I was not prepared for. So went to new areas, put cameras up, wasn't very encouraged. Was very encouraged with the bear activity, was not so much encouraged with the elk activity, which meant we're going to have to keep grinding and putting cameras out and just running it the hard way, not going to where I usually go. Month and a half later, fire's out. My access trail, not the access trail opens back up. Was able to get up and put a camera up 2 weeks before season. Did not make it up there, but as most years, those elk are in that area where we leave them. From there, Sean has arrived for the.
Yes. So I talked about how great of a trip it is to drive to Colorado from Ohio. And this year I'm doing it solo. And so on the way out, I'm like, I vowed. I even told guys last year, like, I am not driving straight to Colorado. I've done it twice now. I'm not doing it again. Like, I refuse to do it again. I am going to get a hotel somewhere and I'm going to stay the night to break this trip up because it is a long, long drive. And that's exactly what I did.
That break in the middle is a good reset when you're putting in that many miles in that short of time.
Yes, because it is about 23 hours of straight travel time for me to get from where I live to where you live. And that does not.
And I believe, to quote you, when you got out here, you said, did you have to pick the farthest end of the state?
Yes, because, yeah, you definitely live on the furthest west part of the state. Like, you are not too far from the great state of Utah. So, anyways.
No, sir, but I did not pick it. It picked me.
Hey, listen, sometimes, life puts you where you need to be. But yes, I was voiced my displeasure of the fact that, even after going through Denver, Colorado, I still had another 3 hours to drive before I got to your house. And Denver tends to be about the center of the state. But anyways, so I stopped in Topeka, Kansas and stayed the night there. And where did I eat? I think it was Church's Chicken. It was the first time I ever had Church's Chicken. And I'm probably gonna ruffle some feathers with this, and it may have just been that location. I just wasn't overly impressed with Church's Chicken. It was good. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was good. But it just, I don't know. Wasn't.
It's not Popeyes. Let's all be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly what what I've heard people like hype it up to be. It was good. It definitely was better. I will say it's definitely better than KFC. And probably a couple others I can throw in there, but definitely.
Okay. Well, let's jump on it while we're in it. where does it land with the almighty is what people claim that Chick-fil-A is.
I am not a huge fan of Chick-fil-A. It's okay. I
I'll
don't know.
second that. I had a sandwich today and I was greatly underwhelmed.
I don't understand what the draw to it is. Because I don't. Every time you drive past one, there's a line that wraps around the building, and I don't get it. I will say I like their fries.
I think the people that like Chick-fil-A do a better job marketing Chick-fil-A than Chick-fil-A does marketing Chick-fil-A, if we're all being honest.
Right. Well, I mean, if you could pull up there and they're all there wrapped around the building, and you're like, huh, it must be good. I like their fries. I will give them that. Like their fries are pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like
they're good. Not to slander Chick-fil-A, great establishment.
Yeah.
Not gonna try and ruffle any feathers that direction or get sued for using their name. Great establishment, just
No, I mean,
not for me.
yeah, I mean it's just like I just don't understand what the draw to it is that deep. Like it's not. I don't know. It's good. Like their sandwiches are good. I really like their French fries. Their French fries are really good. But in the level of chicken, like it's chicken.
It's a pretty small sandwich, if we're all being honest, too. It's pretty small.
But hey, to each their own. I will not turn down the opportunity to eat Chick-fil-A if I get the opportunity.
Fried chicken's fried chicken.
That is correct. That is correct.
But some are better than others. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So yeah, I got Church's chicken for the first time, ate it back at the hotel, and then I left Topeka without much incident taking place. Come to find out, I was actually not too far from the Topeka Zoo. Didn't know there was a zoo there, but I was close to that.
News to me.
So then I left and I made it into Kansas again. Well, I was already in Kansas, but I drove through the rest of Kansas. And if you listened to a previous podcast or you know me personally, you know my great disdain for driving through Kansas. One thing that I want to mention though is that unlike the other trips of my time coming through Kansas, like this was actually like daylight when I came into Kansas, and I no sooner got into Kansas that there's an overpass of the highway. And I kid you not, there is a dude riding a horse across that overpass. And I'm like, that is the most Kansas thing I'm probably going to see in Kansas. And I just got here.
I was going to say that seems about par for the region.
Was this guy just on his horse
that'd
going
be like
across
seeing an Amish buggy coming to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, so. Yeah. You come to the Tuscarawas County area and you see an Amish buggy. That's that. Welcome to Amish country. Yeah. So I was like, well, that's welcome to Kansas, and hopefully I got this right. There's apparently a big like gun store. I think it's called Billy Bob's Outfitters or something, or Jim Bob's. It's Jim Bob's or Billy Bob's or something. And there are signs everywhere for this establishment off of 70. Yes, 70 was what? No. Yeah, I was on 70.
The whole way.
The whole way.
Not to give 70 tips to where we were, but 70's a long road.
So I'm like on 70 the whole way, and like there are signs for Jim Bob's Outfitters all over the place. And I'm like, what a fitting name for a gun store is old Jim Bob's.
Well, I guess the question is riding us all is, did you stop?
No, I didn't. I was on a time schedule and I was in the car long enough. I wanted to get to where I was going. Right. And where I was going was to your place. I will say that the drive once I got out of Denver was beautiful. Going into Denver, like eventually you start getting in the mountains and it really starts to like get gorgeous. But once you get on the backside of Denver and come back down onto the back range, absolutely gorgeous. And I don't remember the name of the canyon that I drove through, but
I'll shamelessly plug it, the Glenwood Canyon, and it is the best part of the drive on I-70 anywhere. You can fight me if you want, and I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion. You're also allowed to be wrong. The Glenwood Canyon is a wonder of its own.
Oh, tell me about it. Like, it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, if I had time to actually get some really good pictures or video of that, it'd been worth it because it was gorgeous. Like, that's the Colorado River that runs through there, right?
It is.
Yeah, that it's just so scenic. Like if you think of like a Western atmosphere with the river and that, like, that was like picturesque of what you would see. And it's just, it doesn't matter what I say or the pictures that I would show you, it does not do it justice. Like, you really need to see it for yourself. So yes, that was probably the best part of my entire drive, was coming into Glenwood Canyon. Well, let me rephrase it. The best part of my drive was actually getting to your house, because I knew I didn't have to drive
But
anymore.
it made it a lot easier with a scenic view like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I made your house, because I left. So I had about 13-hour drive to my first stop, and I had about 10 hours left, which turned into a little bit more because of traffic in Denver, because it's Denver. And then I got to your
Just be
house.
glad there wasn't snow and you hit the traffic on Vale Pass, because that can turn into an event.
Listen, I was nervous going up the mountain without snow, and because of the construction they got going on there. And Coloradians, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, y'all don't know how to merge. Like, you have no idea how to drive on a highway, or at least how to get onto the highway, because, like, I'm from Ohio, and trust me, we have our own share of bad drivers and our own bad habits. But one of the biggest pet peeves is, like, not actually getting up to speed to get onto the highway, which is what the on-ramp is for. And I'm not talking about an on-ramp that is crowded. Like, you're the only car on it, but yet you have to hit the highway at like 35. Like, no, it's 75. Please get up to speed.
At the minimum, be ready for entry at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, I don't think
I've been out here long enough, and I've dealt with it every day. It is a relative issue, seemingly across the board.
Yeah, and well, that was the big takeaway from driving in Colorado this time. As much time as I spent, because any other time I've been to Colorado, we weren't on the highway very much. Like, once we got into Colorado, we were diving. Well, really, by the time we got into Kansas, about halfway through Kansas, we were diving down on other roads. It was not on the main highway, like 70, because we do. We're on our way down towards the southwest part of Colorado, which put us on. They weren't like Goat Pass, but they also weren't like the interstate. So.
But and running straight through like we had done, you might not be as observant to small things like that.
Yeah, well, I definitely was observant this time, and I was in Colorado. I'm going to voice my displeasure with you and your inability to merge onto a highway.
If you're offended, you should be. Learn how to drive.
So, made your house, and I just got on ranting about Colorado drivers. Made your house, and pretty much spent the night there. Had pretty much repacked, because we had an idea. Like, I had everything packed in my pack for like a full on expedition hunt, right? And you and I came up with the idea that, and this is something that I think helps me out too. Like, I don't mind being up in the mountains, up camping for a period of time. Like, I don't mind it, but it's nice to have like maybe a day to come back and refresh a little bit, and then go back out. Like, it is.
The biggest thing that drove at least me back down, currently on medication for blood pressure, was going to inevitably run out and have to refill. So it gave us a nice little in-betweener break too, to just kind of come down, shower, get things cleaned up and reset, and head back up the hill. But we haven't even gotten up the hill yet. That was just an idea that we had.
Yeah, no,
a plan we had devised.
Yeah, so it allowed me to kind of reduce some weight on my pack too, because I was very proud of myself. I had a week, like, I had enough stuff for an entire hunt, and my pack was under 50 pounds. Like, that includes shelter, everything, food, shelter. Of course, that wasn't water weight, because we added water to that, but base weight, clothing, everything was 50 pounds, and I was actually under 50 pounds. I was proud of myself, because
it's a tough thing to do. It is a tough thing to do. Thankfully, it wasn't your first rodeo, and I've been out here doing it a couple years now, and we kind of knew necessities only.
Yeah, and I tend to overpack anyways. I always do. I always think that there's something that, well, in case this happens, I'm gonna need this, and I'm like, you know what?
It's good to be over prepared. It is absolutely good to have it and not need it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's like having a condom at prom. Like, it's better to have it, not need it, than need to not have it. I get it.
And we both know neither of us needed it.
Speak for yourself. Anyways, so we
Apologies to our wives.
yeah, well, we didn't know them back then. Uh they were long before knowing them. But anyways, so we repacked, and I ended up packing for about 4 days. So we decided we're going to make about 4 day break, go up there for 4 days, and then come back down, restock, and go back up. So we got repacked up. The next morning, there wasn't really a rush to go up because we were there. I got there 2 days before season started. The idea was that I got there on a Thursday. Friday we would go up on the mountain, and then Saturday was opening day. We would start hunting. You done, like you mentioned, you done some scouting. You got an idea of where these elk are going to be, right? And you got a couple cameras.
Put in the
up
miles
there.
The last couple of years.
Yeah.
Had the cameras up the last. Yep. We the legwork had been put in.
Yeah, so you've got a relative idea of where the elk are going to be this, where they have been in the past, and where they're likely going to be again. And so we we got up the next morning. And we really weren't in a big rush to get up on the mountain. We wanted to get up there, but we had some time to kill. So you kind of showed me around your local area there, and some of the amenities you guys have, like that trail and that pond and stuff, and your access to the river there behind your guys' house, which the area is actually really, really gorgeous, really beautiful. Took a time to take a few really cool pictures that most people think the pictures I took down there were way better than any that I took on top of the mountain, which just goes to show you.
It's a great little town to be in.
Yeah, which goes to show you the very scenic and the very beauty of the town you live in the mountains that surround it. So, but anyways, so make a decision, and you take me to the trailhead, which the trailhead is a 4-wheeler trail. That I am going to be very honest, I don't know how any 4-wheeler makes it up this 4-wheeler trail. It is a rough one. And now I'm a Flatlander, and you are a recently converted Flatlander. So I've done my very best to prepare for what we're about to get ourselves into. Like, I've been out on several mile hikes with hills here in Ohio, which I don't care what hill it is. It's nowhere near the mountain that you're about to partake in. But I was not ready for the death march that you had planned for me that day.
I didn't want to talk it up, but I also didn't want to talk it down. But I also did not want to give it the essence of terrifying you. So we just kind of left it in the middle ground when we had spoke about it. Yeah. I told you it was going to be a hard hike. I kind of left out just how hard it could be.
Oh yeah, just how hard it could be. Yeah, it was 3.5 miles with about 2,000 feet of elevation gain. So any of you do the math on that one and enjoy.
It is 3.5 miles with 2,500 feet of elevation gain, and then you're coming out throwing, with the water weight, relatively 55 pounds on your back that you typically don't have. And just try to burn up that thing.
Yeah.
Which is essentially a boulder field on the way up.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know how any 4-wheeler makes it up there, but there is definitely evidence that they do make it up there, because one day we're up there, some old feller made it up there blaring music on a side-by-side as loud as he could. Like, I'm pretty sure we heard him from the beginning of the trail all the way until he passed us on his way out to the lakes out there. Just saying.
Yeah, he wasn't shy about it. It was, to be fair, Labor Day weekend, so there's always that chance, especially if you're hiking on a 4-wheeler Jeep trail. People are going to be using it. Everybody wants to recreate. It's a long weekend.
No, and I get it. Like, hey,
but the decibels were a bit extreme.
Yeah, they were. But it's public land. It is what it is, and I'm not mad at the guy. Or a girl. I guess we can't really like assume, because we never did see who it was. We just heard them from the 2.5 miles away. But
give or take. So there are side-by-sides that do make it up that trail. I still don't know how they do it, because I barely made it up on foot. But we made it. Probably not as fast as what you're used to making it up in.
Now, I'm not gonna say that it didn't kick my ass because it did kick my ass. But the thing that bothered me the most wasn't my pack, was the fact that it's just the fact that it's elevation and it's harder to breathe. Um,
And it keeps going up. You think you're going to get a level spot. You think you're going to at least come to some kind of, you know, flat part in the trail where it rides an elevation band, and this trail does none of that.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. Like if it does flatten out, it's because a rock moved, and then that's your flat spot, and that's it. Um, and outside of that, like it is straight up. The only thing that is worse is coming straight down when it's slicker than pig, slicker than pig spit, man. Which we experienced that too. That was fun. I ended up falling at least twice on the way that back down, but we'll get to that conversation. Uh, so we finally made it up the mountain after we took the mini breaks that I needed, my flatland butt needed to get up
Breaks
there.
are nice, man. It's nice for everybody. Don't don't let it fool you. Doesn't matter how fast I was moving. I always appreciate a break.
So, and I'm glad you stuck with me and didn't get too frustrated with me as going up the
Nope, I've
hill.
been there. I've experienced it. No man left behind.
So, but we finally got there. We got to camp. Um, camp camp spot was kind of nice. We got into some pines there. Water was relatively close.
Oh, very close. As compared to other situations we've been in.
So it was a good spot. We were up on top. We were up on, pretty much at the top. I can't say it was the top, but it was close enough. That we were, we didn't have a lot of up to get anywhere.
Elevation relative to 10-2.
Yeah, so it was nice, and we had those trees, which was a good wind break. There wasn't a lot of dead stuff around us, thank goodness. And camp got set up pretty easily. Had to clear out a couple spots, and then we went down, got water, and pretty much set up for the night. And so I mean, other than that, I mean that was pretty much most of the event of that day. Was Friday was just getting up on the mountain, and I slept good, believe it or not, for being out camping. Usually, my first night or two, I don't sleep very well, and then I'm just so exhausted that it doesn't matter. I'll fall asleep anywhere. But actually, it's pretty comfortable that night. And I really didn't bring a whole lot to like sleep in. Like I had my sleeping outfit, which was just like sweatpants, a sweatshirt, and whatever I used, backpack, my sleeping bag and pad. Because I've done this trip. When we did the trip the first time together, like we were in a tent that was heated, and I froze still. Like I was still cold. Like I was not cold this week. Like I don't remember ever being cold while sleeping. Like when we were out
I
moving
think
around
that
doing
had to
stuff.
do a lot with knowledge of gear. The sleeping bag was probably slightly better, properly rated, and just after what, this was your third, fourth trip out.
This would be my third trip. Yeah.
So, you learn not only the moves in the field when you're pursuing the animals, but gear wise, you take note and take an account and make better choices that direction as well.
Yeah, so I mean, and once again, you kind of learn what you need, what you don't need, and go from there. And so we go to bed, and we wake up the next morning. You've got a plan in mind, right? You've got a play. You know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, nope. As far as I know, the camera was left up there from a month prior, and then we figured day one we're gonna hunt our way towards the camera, which had been sitting on a fairly steep meadow, but I know it's a meadow the elk love to be in. I was bear hunting the same meadow the previous year, and all I saw in that meadow were elk, and was kind of kicking myself for poor decision making on just not having an elk tag. But what do you do? Again, hindsight's 2020, and you're gonna hear me say that a lot. But so we get up that morning and make our way to that large meadow. We sat it for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, we sat there for a while.
And I mean, it was almost as dead as it could be. No deer, no elk, no wind. And about 3.5 hours in, a couple guys had popped up on the ridge above us, Not sure if they ever even saw us, but they stood up there for a minute, ripped out a bugle, and then meandered on.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we know
despite,
more than wrap up our morning sit in that meadow. I've run over and grabbed the camera, and we start rifling through the card. And there were thousands of pictures, and not every frame, but 95% of the pictures were elk just partying in that field, just partying, having a good time. Bulls, cows, calves, didn't matter. In the intermittent, when they weren't in that field, we had grouse coming through, we had bears coming through, we had deer coming through. And to not see anything that morning or following days, uh, kind of a kick in the throat.
yeah, it is. So we hunted that morning there, and then I think we went to another spot in the afternoon, where we ran into those hunters again.
We did. We kind of went northeast opposed to the southeast direction we'd gone in the morning.
Yeah, which once again, I'm directionally challenged, and if you said that was northeast, I would have said southeast that we went, but whatever. but I
I
believe
know
you.
it's a little. It's one of those things. I've been fortunate. We moved out here, and I get to. It's one of those things. You start spending a lot of time in a place, and you get to intimately know it and the direction you're running.
Yeah. So I'll give you credit. Yeah, I'm directionally challenged, so I'll just take your word that that's the direction we went. So there was some big fires that had been in there. So there's a lot of
2018.
Yeah, so there's a lot. It was a burn. So it's on the. If you listen to some people, it was on the cusp of it being its prime for elk country, for elk habitat because of all the new growth and stuff. And there was a lot of new growth. Like that place was a
It's
jungle.
popping in there. It is popping.
It was a jungle. Like I've never been to Pacific Northwest, but I've got an idea that's what it kind of looks like because it was like green, big vegetation. Because you guys have had like an abnormal amount of waterfall this year, right? Like between snow melt, rain.
Not even just the precipitation. Yeah, the winter prior there, we had got record-breaking amounts of snow in the high country, which the state hasn't seen in quite some time, 10, 12-ish years. And it dumped the snow in the high country this year, which made for just a banner year. But it kind of, I guess you could say, hurt us in the end because a lot of times when you live in a region that has suffered drought conditions, you can pick a water source and damn well animals are coming to it. But this year, you couldn't just pick a water source because there was water in pretty much anything that would hold it.
Yeah, I mean every drainage there was at least water running through it, constantly. Like I don't think we came to a dried up anything.
No, you run into those potholes that hold melt from the snow, and just kind of sustain that water. Most years they're evaporated or percolated through the soil.
Yeah, no, not this year. There was water
it was
everywhere.
it was moist.
Yeah. If we were antelope hunters, we definitely would have had a bad year. Because I've never hunted antelope, but I hear one of the big tactics, especially in the early bow season, is to hunt water. But anyways, so yeah. So we go to that next spot. We sit there once again. Don't really hear or see much of anything. Like there is sign. Like don't get me wrong. Like there is sign that elk had been there. And a lot of the sign, unfortunately, we were seeing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was at least a couple days old, like if not a little bit older.
I was gonna say some of it, if not a week.
Yeah,
It was like a switch had flipped, and they boogied off of that for what reason we'll never know.
yeah. So it was weird. But it's animals. Who knows what's going on? But there were signs that they had been there, like, and there was a lot of sign, like they were there, and it was a matter of time, I think, before we actually had an encounter with an elk, and well, sure enough, it happened to be the next day, because of all the sign that we had seen, right, most of it being older, and I'll be honest, like I think you were a little discouraged because, or not discouraged, but you might have been a little annoyed with the fact that you knew elk were going to be there, because every other year you've been up there, they've been there, but yet something had changed this year, and it didn't discourage you, but you definitely were a little annoyed, like
Yeah, it got under my skin a little bit. You know, I'm not a professional by any means, but when you go to a place and they're there year after year, and then all of a sudden you have a weather event and conditions change from typical years, you start to second guess, did I make the right decision? We were hunting together, but more so, at least in my mind, I was hunting to attempt to get you an animal on the ground. Like that was priority one for me as a host. Was you spent a lot of money, you spent a lot of time. The goal was to get you an animal on the ground, and that's always the goal, is to get an animal on the ground. But uh, yeah, it was a little discouraging to find that we had been just a couple days behind them, and it's now opening day. But day two rolls around, we
it
change up
does.
strategy and moved south.
Yeah. So you're
Moved
like, so we're
south,
going.
and as we moved south, we started to get that taste of encouragement.
Oh,
And unfortunately, that taste was from fresh piles of shit.
right. No, we did not taste the piles of shit, but yeah. So no, we were actually coming into like really fresh sign. Like, I wouldn't be surprised that we had just missed that elk, being in there, and we're not even a half a mile from camp, if I remember correctly. Like, we're not far.
No, not even.
We are not far from we're not far from camp at all. And so we're finding all this fresh sign, and we come to this spot. Like, there's rubs, like there's the elk are here, right? And we come to this bench, and on this bench is this wallow. And as you put it, this wallow looked like chocolate milk. Like,
It was fresh. They
they
had been in there.
they have been hitting it. And I'm about 95% sure we heard a cow mewing below us, from that bit, down.
We did. We had a cow below us down in the basin, and then we had older, or what seemed to be a larger bull. That's to speculate. At least across
Yeah.
on the other mountainside from us, ripping locate bugles.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, full disclosure here, if I'd been a mountain goat, I would have been more than happy to go over there to get him. Um, but
But for day two, that just wasn't in the cards
no,
yet.
no, and I don't care if it was day 7, it wasn't happening.
It's not forgiving country.
Yeah, it wasn't happening. Like, I'm like, I want to shoot an elk, but at the same time, like, I want to be able to get the elk out and not die myself, trying.
As a callback from earlier, we like to learn the hard way. Maybe not that hard.
Right. Um, but so we made a plan that we were going to set up there, and we set above that water hole, or that wallow. We had about 25, 30 yard shot to that wallow, and we both sat up on the hillside, and we just sat. And I don't think, by the time we had found that, I don't think we were there an hour. And off to our left, I see 4 bulls coming our way, right? And if you're not familiar with Colorado, in all the units except for trophy units, they have a point restriction. And maybe I misspoke about just the trophy unit. Some of them may not have a spike option, but I think most of them do. But in most of the other units, almost all the units, there's a point restriction, where they have to have at least 4 points on one antler, or their brow tine is longer than 5 inches. And
I'm glad you hit that, because there are a lot of people who come out, and they're even people who have moved here, that I've spoke to, that are oblivious to the antler restriction, and it's a very, very good thing to be aware of. I know you don't have to tag in animals out here, but if you do, especially in the unit we were hunting, shoot a spike, and the warden is, checking tags, checking animals on your way out, at least on the parking lot or wherever you may be, you are going to get hit with a fine, and I would assume you would have to surrender the animal as well. I can't speak to how they handle that situation.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not, you know, and you got to play by the rules, like, and despite if you think the rules are fair or whatever, because you and I had a
Or
conversation about those rules, and that might have been more led by frustration than anything else.
absolutely. The biggest thing to remember is the books are online. They're available. It's not like the resource isn't there, so you can't play it. Like in my opinion, you cannot play ignorance to the rules. The rules are there. They are accessible. Know the laws.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, like all these wildlife agencies, they're more than happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. Give
They
them a
may not
call.
get right back to you, but they will talk to you. And
In my experience, I deal with again, this is going to put us in proximity of where we were hunting, but the Glenwood Parks and Wildlife Office, um, fantastic. I have not had a time where I called them and they could not answer a question that I had. They're fantastic people over at the Glenwood office.
because most of them are outdoors people too. Like they want to see people
Yep,
be successful as much as as much as anybody else wants to see somebody be successful, and they want to make sure
absolutely.
you do it right. And then they know that some of their laws, and every state has some wild game laws that can be confusing. And they know that, and how has them. Every state has them. That could be a little confusing, especially for people coming from out of state. And they're more than happy to answer those questions because they want to see you do things right. Because they don't, I'm law enforcement myself, right? My job, I don't, it wasn't my goal to go out and try to see how many people I can get in trouble that day. Like, if I could spend a day where people weren't getting themselves into trouble, I was happy, right?
Great day.
It was a great day. Like, a lot of people like, and I know there's officers out there that's their main goals. They want to get somebody in trouble. Like they try really hard to get somebody into trouble. I was not that person because people do a good enough job getting themselves into trouble without me trying to force them to get into trouble. And by
Correct.
forcing
And
them to
the
get in
people
trouble,
out
like
there doing the right thing are going to help police their own, especially in the wildlife
absolutely,
community.
especially in this, because if you steal from the tribe in the hunting world, we're going to dime you out. That is a big sin to us. Like you don't do that, right?
Yes, sir. Another big thing, I know it wasn't a topic, at least for elk this year, but a big thing for hunters coming out of state, if you're going to be hunting mule deer, if you're going to be hunting elk, a big thing is as CWD becomes more prevalent, you're going to have to pay more attention to those rules and regulations of, you know, getting the meat deboned, if you're bringing a head back, no
Mm-hmm.
meat attached, no brain, all that other stuff that goes along with that. But
Yeah.
my wife just had a second rifle buck tag, and we got a letter in the mail that our unit is now a mandatory check unit for CWD. And you have, I believe I can't remember if it's 2 to 5 days, somewhere within that range, to have your head turned in and the lymph nodes pulled to be sent in for testing.
Yeah. And
That's a big thing to keep an eye out for as that becomes more prevalent.
yeah, and that's a good point to bring up because there's more, because right now most states have laws that you cannot bring in certain body parts of an animal from out of state. Like they have to be, there's no spines, no brain matter. A lot of things you're not allowed to bring in from out of state animals, and that's all CWD related. So
But another rabbit hole we could keep going down.
yeah, yeah,
But we should probably
absolutely.
hop back on track as we meander down, the path.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But so we got down that rabbit hole because I wanted to bring up the fact that there's a 4-point restriction on bull elk in this unit,
Correct.
and is in most units in Colorado. And as I'm looking, these bulls get within 70 yards of us, right? And I'm not saying that you need to be taking 70-yard shots, like, but I practice at 100 plus yards all the time. Like I'm comfortable, especially on an elk size target, making a shot at 70 yards. The problem is that the two bulls that are closest to us are neither one of them are legal. One is a spike, 100% was a spike, and the other one was a fork horn. And 100% fork horn. Which if you don't know what a term fork horn means, it means he has like 2 points on his antlers. That's it. And the other two were bigger. I'm still not 100% sure how big they were, but they definitely were bigger. Like I wouldn't say that they were pushing like 300 inches, like they weren't like monster elk, but they were definitely. I would be safe to say that
what
one of
some
them
would
was at least
describe
legal.
as a rag.
What's
What
that?
some would describe, sorry, what some would describe as a raghorn.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I was in a position to where they were behind a conifer, and I could only see bodies. I could not see antlers, and so I could not give Sean confirmation on what was what. And as the situation drew on, which seemed like an eternity, but was really seconds,
Yeah.
at the time the bulls had shown up, the wind was not in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, by the time they came into a relative range, the wind became our enemy.
Real quick, because every hunter who ever experiences this knows exactly what I'm talking about. Is that moment that you feel the wind hit you in the back of the head, you know your game is up. And that's exactly what happened there. Was that it hit me in the back of the head, and I'm like, well, shit. And I don't think it was 2 seconds later that the two, at least one that was in the front, had perked his head up because he caught our wind, and they booked out of there. They were gone. Not even
What seemingly would have seemed like their first rodeo, being, you know, they weren't super old bulls.
right.
But you wouldn't think they'd have had the interaction like that they had with us at that instance, and they booked it.
No, and they did. They were gone. And with that, not to be a big spoiler, but that was the last time we'd seen elk on this trip. But yeah, they were gone. And I wasn't like, I gotta be honest, I wasn't like disappointed. Yeah, I didn't want to see him go,
We
but
still
like,
had high confidence coming off of that situation.
oh yeah, I was just excited because this is the closest I'd been to actually shooting an elk ever. The first trip out, didn't see any. Second trip, the only one I seen was the ass of one running away from me, and then now I actually had seen them walking in, and I was knocked up, I was ready to go. I just needed confirmation on which one was legal and a clear shot at it, and we would have had an arrow in the air. The goal though, like I really believe that if the wind hadn't shifted on us, we would have got a shot. One of us would have got a shot that day because those bulls were either going to come to that water or they were going to present a shot on one of those trails, right?
They absolutely had every intent on moving in closer. You could tell by their demeanor as soon as they got on the bench that we were on.
Right.
That's where they were coming. Like there was no doubt in their mind that was where they were going. And then we had the unfortunate event of the wind influencing them otherwise.
Yeah. The only thing that I want to say is, with hindsight 2020, is I wished I'd have stayed up above where we originally first seen that bench. When you first seen that water hole, would have put us right above them when they came in.
Yes, sir. And I think at one point I had mentioned, sitting 80 to 100 yards apart as well. And for some reason, we just kind of came together and we're like, it's right here.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going to come to it. And, like we said in the last one, you can what if till you're blue in the face, but
absolutely,
the decision you make, you can't predict the wind.
No, you can't. And unfortunately, that was the thing we dealt with that day. Was a lot of swirling wind.
Actually, the whole trip, we kind of fought that swirling wind the whole damn time.
Yeah, well, that day was that. Well, let's see. That day going into the next day, it got progressively worse. Because I do remember, was it Monday that we got down? We came down off the mountain, or was it Tuesday?
It was that Monday because we had seen those bulls that Sunday.
Yeah.
Mid-morning ish. It was probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, we hung out there for a little bit longer. Nothing else was coming in. Didn't hear anything else. So we went ahead and went back up over the top where we came from. Ran into your buddy Adam on our way out. Kind of explained to him what we ran into, and he kind of shared some stuff that he'd come across. Fresh sign and stuff. And we go back to camp. We either take a quick nap, ate lunch, all that kind of stuff. And then We went back to that meadow we went to on the first day, didn't we? That
We
evening?
did.
Yeah. Because that meadow was about several hundred yards from where we were, and I'm like, well, maybe they just came back into this spot here because there was a lot of tree, like big timber in there still. Maybe they just came back in there, and maybe we'll catch them coming out or something coming out into these meadows, right? Because they're all connected to one another. And well, we sat nothing. Heard that bull across the valley, just bugling his head off. But we also learned that there was a camp down below, a big outfitter camp that was hunting down there that had a couple different guys in it later on, which we learned that a couple days later. But apparently there were some
Tuesday
guys.
morning, we
Yeah,
received that intel.
yeah. Apparently there was a big outfitter camp down below where we were hunting. I don't know if they ever came up to where we were, but they were definitely hunting in that area. So some of that bugling or some of those noises we heard may have been them, but I don't know. So very unlikely. But yeah, we did hear him. We bugled a couple times. We bugled at him. He bugled at us, or at least we think he bugled at us, but he definitely was not coming to us. And so we went back to camp. Wind got really bad that night. Like it was howling bad. And it didn't get much better in the morning. And actually, in the morning, we seen that there was a storm moving, or something was moving in, and it didn't look good.
With all intents and purpose, we had every intention on going back to that wallow and sitting in it. When we got up that following morning, the wind was not ideal. It was ripping in the direction we would not have wanted it to have been.
Yeah.
So we aborted the plan and kind of just spent the morning meandering around looking for sign in other vicinities, at least with the wind in our face.
Yeah.
That way, if we had come up on anything, we would at least have some kind of advantage as far as the wind was ripping enough to where nothing would have hurt us moving,
right.
And it would have been in our face, so it wouldn't have smelled us coming.
Yeah, we did that, and then we end up playing mountain goats up on a scree field. Got up on a ridge top, got some cool pictures from there, and then we came back down, and that's when we kind of noticed that there was a big front moving in, which was probably why it was so windy. And we had a hard conversation about, hey, listen, we might want to just, tomorrow was going to be our restock day anyways. We might just want to make it today, considering the way the wind is. It's not conducive to what we're trying to do. So we decided, let's do it. And so we packed up a little bit, left camp there. One of our scouting missions around camp, you came across a spool of barbed wire. And so from previous experience that you had from hunting, where your camp was destroyed by some cows, which there was cattle in the area, you were like, it's not going to happen again. So you went ahead and barricaded our camp with barbed wire. And or at least cordoning it off with barbed wire, and
yep, just a single strand around the trees around camp, probably waist height, enough to deter cattle from rummaging through everything, as aforementioned.
Yeah, and flattening our camp basically. So we packed up, left most of our stuff there, and I took the necessities down, like clothing that we could wash, things like that. And then we started to walk out, and that's when it decided it was going to dump on us, and it rained and rained and rained. We basically walked through a cloud is what we did. I got a cool video.
And I made the mistake. I left my rain gear back at camp. Prior to leaving, there was no rain in the forecast, but as we all that have been in the high country have experienced, you're not going to predict what's going to happen in the high country, and you're going to be wrong. So I was soggy the whole way down.
Yeah, and I had my rain jacket with me, and that's all I brought was just a rain jacket. I didn't bring rain pants. So we make our way down the mountain, which if I said the trail was bad coming up when it was dry, going down when it was wet, pretty much a creek was just as bad, if not worse, to be honest with you. And I felt
absolutely 100% worse. Like
I know I fell a couple times. But the problem is that the mud was like this mud that just caked into your tread and didn't go anywhere. Like it just stayed there.
Yeah, it was the thing with the soils out here. I'm sure somebody will correct me. I've had a lot of experience in soils as a heavy equipment operator. It seems to be more of a one-to-one clay out here. Like, yes, it's sticking, it binds to your boots, but it is like ice when you're on. You're slipping, you're sliding, you're gonna at some point or another get.
Yeah, and I slipped a couple times, and I was really worried about my bow on a couple of them, but it held up pretty good. Didn't have any major issues coming down, and I didn't break anything on myself as I came down. And we eventually got down, and by the time we got off the mountain, I think it was not raining down off the mountain, and we went to your house. Got kind of resituated, went out, got dinner. Got cleaned up,
just reset.
Reset,
nice reset,
and then we actually had a chance to actually go through your card from your camera because your card reader was dead. We kept dying on you up on the mountain, and so we actually got a chance to go through that, and
it got even better than we thought.
Yeah, like the elk were there up until about 1 or 2 days before the season, right? Maybe a day before was the last picture of elk that you had. So like they were there, like they literally there. Where they went from that point on, I have no idea. I don't know what chased them out. I don't know, because there wasn't, although there was a few hunters, there wasn't that many, right? There was you, me, Adam, and then that group that was actually from Jersey. We came across them. There was 2 of them. Like that was it. Like, and they pulled out. I think they were there for 2 days.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
They were there
and they left because they didn't hear any bugles, and that was the style hunting they wanted. And no shame to no. I'm not throwing shade on them for that. That's the experience they wanted, and that you could be successful doing that, and that's what they wanted. And they wasn't happening there, so they moved on to their next spot. I will give them kudos though; they were walking around with a full pack on, like hunting, and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that.
No, they were like for the short time they were there, they were grinding while they were there.
Oh yeah, they were grinding.
But yeah, there was zero reason for the elk not to be where I'd left them year after year after year now. And it wasn't coming together. And we went down, the reset was good for morale.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, moving back up into the high country after that reset, we just continued to take a beating.
Yeah, strike out. It didn't matter what we did, we were striking out. Like even the sign that was fresh was now not fresh. The wallow, when we went back to check on it, it was not chocolate milk anymore. It was starting to clear up, which is a good indication that they hadn't been back in there yet, since we'd been there. And so not to beat a dead horse or prolong the story longer than we need to, we decided, I think we spent that Tuesday up there, and I think we spent Wednesday up there, right?
We spent we spent
with half a day Wednesday, right? What's that?
I believe so. Because we started to run into cattle then.
Yeah.
The cattle had been moving back into the area, and as most know, you start running into livestock on the range. The elk are not going to be in there.
Right. And so the only other option that we would have been dive down the mountain towards the valley there. I'm not going to name the creek that ran through there, but there was a pretty famous creek that runs through there, and then go back up on the other side and go after that bull there. You had already kind of made a trail, not a trail, but you had mapped out a trail for us to take to get out of there in the event that we were successful.
I'd spent some time over there the years previously. It dives in. It kind of planes out once you're in the bottom. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you get into that basin, but you've got pretty steep mountainside up the other side of that basin. But if you would kill something in there, you can ride that creek bottom out for the most part, and then up into some more elevation to another general area. But hindsight, again, 2020, should have maybe had another vehicle parked over there, so we would have had a little more confidence to churn and burn into that.
Right. But I knew, like, I was already starting to drag ass already from dealing with just being on the side of the mountain that we were on. and the deadfall and stuff that we were dealing with.
The
Uh,
deadfall this year up there was definitely more than the years prior. I don't know if it was the moist soil that let those roots loosen on those, the dead roots loosen on those trees that knocked more down, but it was a lot climbing over as much as we climbed over in
right
the
in
4 or
elevation.
5 days.
Yeah, elevation and dealing with the up and downs of elevation is one thing, but when you add deadfall to it, that just makes it that just exacerbates what the problem is. Um, but I'm not trying to complain or sit here
Have
and
a pity party.
have a pity party. Like, that's elk hunting. That's what it is. That's what you signed up for. But I knew what my limitations was, and I'm like, if I do dive down that mountain, I don't know if I'm coming back up. Like, I don't know if
Well,
I don't know. Like,
and not to mention, after we gained the intel of an outfitter camp being in the basin below us, was it even an elk?
right. Yeah, because we did come across another hunter that Tuesday morning when we were going back up the mountain, who was coming out, who had actually weathered the storm, but he was coming out that day. He's like, "Oh yeah, I've already got like 10, 11 miles in already." I'm like, "All right, what is wrong with you?"
And
Um,
he had been on that opposite basin of us.
yeah,
And there was at least one bull that he had been on. And, after that, he hadn't seen it and he had heard bugles coming from said outfitter camp, unfortunately.
yeah. So he was going back to his humble abode, and I think he was going to come back, a little bit later on in the week. But he was a Colorado resident. He wasn't from out of town, so he had the time to come back. So pretty much by Wednesday afternoon, we made a decision that we need to pack up, and we're gonna like call an audible, and
Time to try new areas.
we pretty much became road hunters at that point. Went back to your house, which I gotta say, it's nice just to go back to the comforts of a home, and then get up in the morning and go, compared to, I'm like, once again, I'm not trying to come off as a sissy, but there's a big difference, and the older you get, the more you appreciate the comforts of home. But I don't mind getting out and roughing it for a little bit. um
To swing back real quick, what was that term you'd used just prior? We'd become what hunters?
Road hunters.
And to define, no, we were not trying to shoot things from the road.
No.
I know there could be some confusion within the community on what the definition of a road hunter is. Since I've been here, we use it as a term for folks who basically scout from the road
Hmm.
and then move in to the terrain they want to be in.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we were doing. Like, we drove to a spot, and then we maybe a mile, if that, from the truck, and then back. We wasn't packing in, setting up camps. Like, we were just bouncing around from different spots. And unfortunately, all the spots we checked, no new sign of elk. Like, we found maybe some older sign here and there. Found some really great, like, if I was an elk, I would be there. It looked that great of country for it to be, but they just weren't there. And so we spent Thursday and Friday doing that, and I do believe Saturday morning, bright and early, was time for me to leave. But
It was.
we tried our hardest. Like, I knew come Friday, um, if we didn't I mean, I could have pushed my vacation a little bit longer, because I have a very flexible job, and I'm very grateful to have that job, where it's kind of flexible for me, and I kind of built that flexibility for my return in the event that we did have a late kill. But I kind of already had in my head that if it didn't happen by Friday morning, it's probably not going to happen. Or it's not going to be feasible for it to happen, because we're not going to have time to deal with it, get off the mountain, and then deal with it, and for me to be back in time.
And the story ends in the unfortunate result that, nothing hit the ground. And after you left, it didn't get easier. The action picked up. Rut did move in. I, I have been fortunate to pick up a job in the last year that has allowed me more flexibility to hunt. I was able to hunt the most I've been able to hunt since moving here. I was able to hunt 17 days this year, and not to say it got easier, because it certainly didn't. The miles definitely got put in, but the opportunities continued to get closer, and I was unfortunately unable to put one on the ground myself. But I learned a lot more with these closer encounters that I was able to have later in the season, and I wish I would have been able to have those experiences prior to you getting out to your hunt. But here we are back at that famous term or phrase, hindsight's 2020.
That it is. But here's the thing: like, even if so, let's say, um, in I know this guy is not your favorite person in the world, and I'm not going to go down the road of why, but like Aaron Snyder, like he's got a saying that we fight, we prepare for our next war based upon our current war, and so now with that information out there, like, um, uh, if we prepare for our next hunt based upon that info that you got this year, it could be totally different. Like, it actually, we probably should have been out there for the opener. You know what I mean? It's just hard. Like, and I think you just got to
Yep.
be really adaptable and adapt to what the situation you're going in. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not.
Now, again, the elk, where I was getting into them later in the season, I don't believe traditionally would have been in there had it not been such a wet year. Because where I had found water in that region, and the fella that I had been going along with, um, a typical year, a typical drought season year out here, those elk would not have been in there. But because it was sustaining water and everybody had been overlooking that point, they were there. And that's just the dumb luck of it.
Yeah, well, you got to go where they're at, and I think that's a big learning point through this whole adventure, is that you got to be able to go where they're at. And I'm not, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to go on a Cam Hanes, type workout regimen to get me to where I'm going to go where the elk are, because there are way too many people that are successful going into places that they just happen to cross elk because they find the pocket that is overlooked by everybody else, and that's where the elk are. They're creatures just like any other animal. Like, they're going to go to where they feel safe, and just because it looks good to you doesn't mean it's good to them.
Yeah,
Because someone else probably
absolutely.
thinks it looked good, and they've already been there and pushed them out of there. Elk, like other animals, are very resilient. And they don't have a problem going into places that you probably wouldn't, because that's
Yeah.
that's that's their home.
And that's the biggest thing I found out this year. Like, everybody, well, not everybody, but a majority of the people are wanting to hunt elk in this big, dark, rugged timber. And, you know, don't overlook that oak brush, everybody. Those Gamble's oaks, those elk fucking love it. Apologies for the F bomb, but they love it. It's thick and it's noisy and it's hard to move in on them and that stuff. And that's a great place for them to be. It might be warm and it might be warmer than you'd think, like, oh, it's, you know, 45 to 60 degrees in the high country right now. Well, it's 75 to 80 degrees down there. If there's water, it doesn't matter because it's just loud enough that they know they're going to smell you or hear you before you get in on them on those Gamble Oaks. So do not overlook that type of terrain.
Yeah, and you had a close encounter with one.
A couple.
Yeah, yeah. You and the guy you were hunting with, you guys both had and what you said, a big,
It
at
was
least a
at least
set.
a 7x6 at the
Yeah,
minimum. He was within 70. Unfortunately, he's using a traditional bow, not a feasible shot on his end, and he could only see the neck. So had he been using a compound, not an ethical shot
yeah,
either.
yeah. No,
Um, the guy's a great judge as far as distance, as far as ethical shots. And he was probably within 40 yards of cows. Now, if you're like me, I just want my first elk on the ground.
hmm
A cow is a legal take in that unit. It is an either sex tag.
right.
Um, I would have been more than tickled. In which later on, I had a 25-yard encounter with a bull, very brief. I mean, seconds. So there wasn't even time to get the bow drawn back. I had the arrow knocked. I was, for the most part, what you would say is ready. Um, had not rounded, topped a little knob,
Mm-hmm.
saw antlers, thought he was rubbing a tree. He wasn't. He was on the move. Tried to make a move in around behind him. He gave me the slip, and that's when I started to cow call, trying to pull him in. I started to actually pull two or three of his cows in. As they started to chirp back, I was getting confident. I set up, and then I heard hooves. To me, sounded like run downhill. So I moved around to look down the slope. I'm an idiot. I was wrong. They had moved up the hill. We were about 30 yards apart and just had a stare off because they had me dead to rights. I couldn't move, couldn't make a move. And they beat feet. So it's all, again, a part of that learning lesson. Maybe hang tight. You hear something that doesn't sound right. I'm not saying second guess yourself, but maybe just give it 5, 10 minutes. It could make a difference.
Yeah, and not this wasn't elk hunting, but I had a big learning experience last year bow hunting. I had taken a couple weeks off to hunt the rut here in Ohio, and it was miserable. Like I had not seen a single deer that I wanted to shoot at all. Like, and it's just very sporadic, like deer activity. And then I went out, on a whim, got there late on, it was the opening day of youth season. So kids were out with their guns. So I had to wear hunter's orange with my bow, and I shot the biggest deer of my life that day. So, it literally takes 10 seconds. It takes 5 minutes or 10 seconds to turn a otherwise terrible hunt into the best hunt of your life. So don't get discouraged. Like keep pushing, keep grinding, because that 10 seconds could be the next 10 seconds of that hunt.
Change your life, man.
Yeah, there are times that it is going to happen. You're not going to see anything, or it's just not going to pan out, and you're going to have tag soup. It happens, but you're going to be more successful if you have the confidence knowing that that 10-second window could very well be the next 10 seconds. So just keep that positivity, keep pushing, keep grinding, and it will come together, right? And learn from your mistake. I don't want to say mistakes all the time, but learn from your experiences and adapt to those.
100%.
Adapt to those, and come back better prepared next time. This is probably the most prepared I've been for an elk hunt. I still think there's some preparation I could have done, but what I say could have and could have and will do is two totally different things. I think it was in shape enough to where I could meander around the mountain. I wasn't going anywhere fast, but I think if I had to get somewhere, I would have. But we'd have logged some extra time doing it compared to
silver lining. The second time you came up the mountain, it was a lot quicker.
Oh yeah.
Not knowing what to expect. I mean, granted, we didn't have the weight on our backs that we did, but you get in that situation where you're going up a trail for the first time and you don't know what's around the corner. Second time, you're like, well, this is gonna suck, but we're doing it.
Here we go again. Yeah. So yeah, you managed to get me up and down that what, 3 times? Twice?
Up it twice.
Yeah, up
down
twice.
it. I would assume twice.
Yeah, up twice, down twice. Yeah. Yeah, so you got me to do it more than once. So congratulations.
But it's honestly, I mean, I might be a twisted individual, but between that and the other trail next to it are my favorite trails, and I might be a glutton for punishment, but I do those a few times a year, and every time it kicks my ass, but I keep asking for more. It's a cool trail.
Well, most people, they'll tell you like it's not the easy stuff that you remember. It's the hard stuff. Like that's the stuff that like when you go back and look back at an adventure or look back at an experience, it's the hard stuff that really push you to your limits. It's the stuff that you remember and the stuff that you actually are very grateful for. The easy stuff is like, oh yeah, it was a good time. It was kind of easy, but if you really like to really hear someone go back and tell a story, like it's the hard moments that they really get into details about. So,
And
yeah.
I am sure this one will be ingrained into your DNA.
Oh, it will. It will. Well, every trip out west will be ingrained in my DNA.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's way. I mean, it's a different ball game. Like, and to me, and I know there's going to be people who are well more suited for this life, for that lifestyle than I am. But I'm a Midwest whitetail hunter, so just keep that in mind. And I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm not, I'm not old enough for AARP yet, but I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And here's a sidetrack I want to cover, and we're about an hour and a half in, so we'll close this out. But here's the thing that I want everybody to know. Number one, you're not getting any younger, and number two, those mountains aren't getting any shorter. So if this is something you want to do, it is very, very obtainable. It is not overly expensive to do. There is a cost associated to it, like more than what you probably do as a whitetail hunter, but it is not unobtainable. And
There is. But if you think of it in relativity to a lot of people I know that direction, you know, if I'm not kicking anybody because I used to smoke, I used to chew.
yeah,
If you can afford that pack of cigarettes or that can of chew day in and day out, you can afford to give it up for potentially, I'm not going to say the hunt of a lifetime, but an experience at the minimum.
right.
I'm not saying you have to quit, but if you're able to put purchase into something as useless as nicotine products, you can take time to put purchase into a life experience.
Yeah, and I've got some buddies that are close to me that are work friends. They always say, "Oh, I always want, yeah, I've always wanted to go do that." And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And they make it through life. They get to their retirement age, and then now they absolutely can't do it because
Yeah, you
they just
work a tough career and it's hard on your body.
they just physically can't do it. And I know everyone has their own commitments, their own responsibilities that they have to take over and they have to account for. But at the end of the day, like, listen, I'm gonna steal this from Casey from Hush, and like, you only get so many opening days, so you got to get out there and you got to experience. If it's something you want to do, like, don't wait until the perfect moment, because there'll be no such thing as a perfect time to go ever. Like, everyone says, well, we're just waiting for the perfect time for us to buy a house, or we're just waiting for the perfect time for us to get married, or we're just waiting for the
It's
perfect
never
time
going
for
to
us
be
to
the perfect
for us to
time,
have
just so
kids. Like,
you are all aware.
listen, this is life, right? And just when you think it's perfect, something's going to happen that it's not going to be perfect anymore. So, I'm not telling you to be irresponsible, but what I am telling you is that don't keep pushing it down the road thinking that there's going to be a better time to go. Because, like I said,
Opportunities knocking. Don't
yeah,
let it
yeah,
pass by.
you're not getting any younger, and the mountains aren't getting, and you're not, and the mountains aren't getting any smaller. And unfortunately, access and opportunities aren't getting greater. They're
No,
starting to get
and
less and less.
especially with the unfortunate politics in Colorado that have been going on, it's a scene that we may keep seeing opportunity shrink. That's another topic for another day.
Absolutely.
But I'll end it on, as far as, I hope you had a good experience when you came out. I put in a lot of work, and I know you did too. And it was fun, man. I'm glad you came out. I'm looking forward to, fingers crossed, next year to getting you into a tag. I'm thinking maybe not second season,
Okay.
but we can discuss that later.
Yeah,
As far as
absolutely.
content to come on the YouTube, I'm hoping at some point you guys start to see my face a little bit more. I intend to, at the minimum, have a barrel cam for small game when I'm out duck hunting. Since moving here, a lot of people have called me silly for it, but didn't duck hunt before I got here. Got into duck hunting in Colorado on the western slope. Not the best range for birds, but man, I've had a blast. So I'm hoping to share that experience with you guys. Maybe tease a future episode. Haven't been successful with elk, but I do have a deer under my belt since moving here. So that's been super exciting for me. And that's again another discussion for another day. And
Absolutely.
hopefully Sean can prep a list of questions and we can blaze through that list. Uh, and tell you guys a little more about opportunity out west aside from elk.
Well, I think that's well said. I think it's a good closing point here. Well, Sammy, I really do appreciate your time. I know you were just dying for your vendor show today, and
Oh
I
man, absolutely. I mean, we were swamped sitting in this hotel room
I
for
I hate to
last.
pull you away from all that fun and excitement to sit down and have these conversations, but I do appreciate your time to sit down and discuss these. And I did have a great time. It was a great experience. Anytime to get out west and just see, like, listen, I know that the tags were expensive, but if you look back at it, and how much do you spend on to go on a vacation somewhere else, right? And it's not necessarily the act of being successful that makes the trip. It's just the experience. Just because there's nowhere else in the state of, I don't get that in the state of Ohio. Like, I don't see the mountains. I don't see what I saw in Colorado here in Ohio. Like, I can see them in pictures,
Sure.
but I said it before, I'm gonna say it again. Pictures don't do that landscape justice, because you really just don't fathom how big that land really is until you see it, and then you start to realize how just insignificant you really are. In that, that to me, that represents that you really, it puts in perspective, um, the troubles and worries of the world, that aren't as big as what you think they are, and that your
Absolutely.
existence in this world is not that significant. And that, not to be like depressing when I say that, but just to be mindful that, listen,
There
you're
are bigger problems in the world,
there are bigger things.
and
There are bigger things in this world than the
yeah,
insignificant stuff that you're dealing with right now, and that,
yep,
it's very humbling to be part of that. And I do appreciate all the hard work you put in towards that. And I know, despite how frustrated I was at times, like, I knew you had to be even worse because of all the work you've done, and knowledge that you knew going into it, and that it definitely didn't live up to what you knew it could. But don't worry. My frustrations is I'm not frustrated about now. My was more so of just, I don't know if I could have climb over one more piece of deadfall
well,
by the time we
it's
were
just
done.
kind of that unbelievable like, oh, here we are again. But yeah, no, get out there, see it. For those of you who don't think you can afford an elk tag, mule deer tags are very attainable. There is no over-the-counter mule deer for anybody curious,
No.
but the most that you have to do for mule deer is that small game licensing fee
Hmm.
for the qualifying license, the
Yep.
application fee, and I believe it's around 3 to 350 for a deer tag.
Yep.
So, I mean, if elk is off your list, maybe mule deer isn't. Come get them, man. Uh, they're here.
Oh yeah, it's on my list of things to do, and hopefully I draw next year. And we'll definitely have to talk offline sometime, to get an idea. I'll let you kind of digest what your season ends up being, and then let you digest, and we'll come up with a game plan for next year for when I put in for the draw, for a rifle hunt. It'll be my first rifle hunt ever. So I am a diehard archery hunter, but I figured I'd give the rifle a shot. So
Listen, when you can have an opportunity to shoot a deer further than 100 yards, it's a pretty cool experience to see. People spend all year shooting guns. It's cool to see when rubber meets the road. You can shoot at targets all you want. Are
yeah.
you going to get that panic when that opportunity arises with what could be a trophy animal just staring at you through that optic?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Um,
for sure. So yeah, shamelessly plug all the fun stuff where people can give us good or bad feedback.
well, obviously, you guys can check us out on our social media platforms. I like to tell you to check us out on Facebook, but I don't do the Facebook. And the guy who's supposed to is a little busy, and I don't know the last time he actually logged into our Facebook. So definitely check us out on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors. along with our YouTube page. We don't post. I don't post very regularly on the YouTube page. I should do a little bit more, but life happens. We do some gear reviews and some hunts get put up there. But just check it out and leave us comments, questions, concerns, and we definitely like to get back to you and entertain. Not only entertain but actually engage in conversations with people who talk with us. I do have a project that we'll be working on. I'm not going to disclose what it is right now, but I think it'll be beneficial. It may not. I know there's organizations that are similar to one I'm going to be working with here in Ohio, out towards Colorado, but I'll talk to you about it a little bit offline. But I got in touch with somebody, and it's going to be a good project, I think. So. But yeah,
and again, that's Country Fried Outdoors with a K.
With a K, yeah. Don't go in there spelling it with a C. It's with a K, and it's definitely worth checking out. So, folks, once again, thank you so much for your time. We hope that you guys are going out there and chasing the experience that you want, and that you're not allowing people to shame you out of that experience. We hope that you stay safe out there while you are chasing that experience. And as always, until the next one, God bless you guys.